Good morning and Happy New Year. Can you believe we are already well over halfway through January of 2025? Just doesn't seem possible. Welcome to our January Worksite Wellness Lunch and Learn. I'm Carol Battle, and I manage our Worksite Wellness program within the Office of State Human Resources. We're pleased to welcome each of you here today. Please note that we do offer caption at real-time services for today's event. For captioning, click the CC button at the bottom of your screen. For future events, if you or a deaf or hard of hearing colleague would like to use an accommodation, please email us at ncflex@nc.gov to make a request. To account for scheduling and booking constraints, please make your request at least 14 days before an event. At this point, we want to welcome our presenter, Katie Godin from Lifestyle Medical Centers. Katie will offer some great strategies on how to set realistic goals and how to stay on track with your wellness goals throughout the year. January is such a great time to gain a new perspective on goals of any kind, but especially your health goals. Katie's a registered dietitian who has been practicing for almost 17 years. She focuses on helping individuals improve their knowledge and relationship with food and to meet their personal health goals. Lifestyle Medical Centers is an in-network nutrition counseling service for employees enrolled in the state health plan. Even under our new provider, Aetna, you will find that both virtual and in-person visits are covered at 100% for in-network providers. The state health plan also has other dietitians across the state. To find one near you, log into your state health plan portal, which is listed on the cover slide. And as a reminder, everyone who's registered for today's event will receive a recording of the presentation as well as the recipe. To find past Lunch and Learn recordings, which are all so beneficial, or to see our new calendar year of sessions to look forward to in 2025, visit our website at oshr.nc.gov/wellness-webinars. During the presentation today, you can submit questions through the question and answer, and members of our NC Flex team will help answer them. Additionally, Katie has saved a few minutes at the end of the presentation that we will use to conquer any questions that we're unable to get to. Now, let's welcome Katie and Lunch and Learn. Katie?
Thank you. Thank you, Carol. Hey, everybody. Hope you're having a good start to 2025, staying warm indoors today. It's very chilly. Luckily, we don't have this chilly weather too long. But today, let's kind of talk about discuss what we're going to talk about today. So we are going to go into small goals, big changes, and ultimately transforming your health this new year. I know every turn of the year, we have these intentions, resolutions, goals, whatever you want to call them. So we're kind of going to go through, well, why do these goals potentially just fall off? And how can we make them stick? And even better, what are some really good examples of realistic goals that you could be setting for yourself? As Carol mentioned, I'm a registered dietitian with Lifestyle Medical Centers. I love counseling. I enjoy education. This is obviously one of my favorite parts of my job is getting to speak to you all every month. It's one of the most interesting and fun things that I've gotten to do in my career. So I really appreciate everyone who, takes the time to tune into these each month. But we do offer nutrition counseling, of course, and we love to tailor our program to your needs. So if you've kind of been thinking about seeing a dietitian and wanting to get involved in a program to help with accountability and support and encouragement and education, then take some time and look into what we can offer. I've posted a link down there at the bottom so that you can check it out in your free time. All right, guys. So let's kind of go over some of these key discussion points that we are going to work through today in our presentation. So we're going to talk about why you're not achieving your goals. That's really important that we're kind of figuring out, hey, what's going wrong here? Maybe we're just not sure of that. So I think diving deep and figuring that out is a really important part of the goal setting process. We're also going to talk about how to make goals stick. So once we kind of figure out, okay, maybe this is where I'm going wrong, this is how I can work on fixing it. And we're going to talk about something called SMART goals. I have presented on these before, but it's been a while. And I think that the new year is a great time to reintroduce what they are. And most importantly, how we can use this tool to set realistic SMART goals. That's the key word of the day, is realistic. Okay. All right, so just to kind of start off with the did you know fact here, and maybe you guys are pretty aware that sometimes resolutions fall off, right? But when you hear it like this, so about 50% of Americans make New Year's resolutions. Around 25% or half of those individuals stay committed after 30 days, and less than 10% will accomplish the goals that they set out to do. So a really small percentage of the amount of people setting goals are actually completing what they set out to do. So I think that's really important to understand. Hey, I'm not alone in this. And then also, how do we work on this? How do we work on the retention of our goals and keeping the consistency going throughout the year? All right. Well, let's get into the big question. Why do resolutions ultimately fail? I don't love the word fail, but why don't they work out? So bottom line, they're not the keyword that we're focused on today, right? They're not realistic, or they're unrealistic goals. So, when we aim for these major transformations and we're not considering these gradual steps that need to be taken to reach that bigger goal that you're trying to work on, that can ultimately lead to you feeling discouraged. And, bottom line, the goal eventually doesn't work out for you in the end. So that discouragement is something that we want to prevent. And that's one of the key things for helping to make these goals stick. Also, a resolution or goal intention lacking specificity. So, when we get into the SMART goal discussion, we're going to talk about the importance of setting those really clear, defined, um, you know, things around your goal that are going to help just, again, bring more relevance to the goal, make it easier for you to understand what you're trying to do to reach this goal. Basically, a lot of information around how you're going to achieve your goal is really important. And that's something that we just don't tend to do. We kind of just make a blanket statement. I want to lose some weight. That's my goal this year. Or I want to move more. And these are all fine. These are fine intentions and fine goals. However, they really need to be kind of unpacked a little bit more, understood a little bit more, what's going to work best for you. How are we going to have support, accountability, tools? How are we going to track our progress? These are things that we need to think about. A lot of us have what we call this all or none mentality. And so, anytime you set a goal, for example, I am going to cut carbs for the first 6 months of the year. That could be a goal for someone. Okay. And so anytime you have a carbohydrate, you're going to feel like you just deviated from that plan, and you're going to feel like a failure, and you're going to feel like giving up. And so again, maybe a better way of looking at that is I really want to increase my fiber intake. I really want to reduce my added sugar intake, which are kind of surrounding that food group of macronutrient of carbohydrates. It's a much realistic thing to focus on, and healthier mindset, in my opinion, is to focus on less added sugars or more fiber versus I have had, we've come off the holidays with a lot of sweets, and all of a sudden we're like, nope, no carbs, no carbs for months for me. And so that's the all or none, um, working against you. There is all of a sudden we have carbs and then we just give up. No planning. And this is something that I feel is essentially the root of a lot of problems with consistency for people, is not understanding their barriers to their game plan. So having a plan for honestly anything that you're trying to do, whether it's food, exercise, sleeps, working on your mental health. We need a plan involved so that we can understand, again, what checklist of things do we need available to us? How are we going to make this work? The idea of I want to reduce my stress this year. I really want to do that. That is the ultimate goal. That's a great intention. But again, we need to understand the how. How are we going to do that? How are we going to reduce our stress? What things need to be in place? What tools? And all the things. The other is we have more of a short-term focus. We come out of that January 1st, we're just being, shot out of a cannon. We're ready to go. Hey, here we are. We are so ready. We have just, we gave up in December because we said we didn't need to do anything because we were going to be gung-ho as soon as January 1st hits. So we come out the gates just ready to go. And then all of a sudden, the only thing we're focused on is what we have to do, like right then and there, focusing on the short-term excitement, if you will, versus, hey, this is a big deal. We want to do something that, is really meaningful here. So we really need to, take that time to think about what that bigger picture is going to look like. So a lot of times we don't take time to look at that bigger picture. Okay. All right. And maybe you guys are sitting here thinking, hey, that does sound like me, or gosh, that is something that I do. I can look at some of this and do the same thing. I mean, we're not all perfect here with goal setting. I think we're going to constantly be making tweaks, room for improvement, and kind of normalizing the fact that we're always trying to, do better at certain things. But I think just again, having some awareness of what some of your main reasons why your resolutions may fail could really be beneficial for you. Okay, so how do we make them stick? We know potentially what's going on now. Maybe we feel like, okay, this is why. It's the planning or it's my all or none mentality. What do I do to help make them stick? Well, that's where these SMART goals I'm hoping are going to help you. And then, just putting a little bit more information around your goal. And also learning how to break your goal down into smaller stages. You might have this bigger focus of, I want to, lose a certain amount of weight this year. I want to be able to run a 3 to 5 miles at a time, these bigger goals in place. Then we have to break them down into stages. Is part of our healthy eating intentions to have, weight management, going to be more of understanding what are some habits that I need to work on. It could be I skip meals and then overeat in the evening. So maybe one of my break into stages goals is to have more structure to my meals. Maybe it's I feel really hungry all of the time. I don't feel like I'm eating enough balance at my meals. So could one of your small stages be, okay, this month I really want to knock out a lot of protein and fiber when I eat my meals because I'm learning, and these are things you would learn in sessions with a dietitian. I'm learning that these are important tips in order for me to, maintain satiety or fullness. So again, we have this bigger goal, but we really need to break it down into stages so that we kind of understand that this is going to be a slow work in progress. You do need to find relevance. You need to understand for yourself why this is meaningful to you. So that's just could be, kind of a time for you to sit down and reflect on why do I want to move more? Is it so that I have less joint pain? So that I can improve my cardiovascular health. There could be a lot of reasons that you kind of start to think about there. But bottom line, you need to have strong relevance that's really kind of pushing you and motivating you to maintain that consistency. When we don't have relevance to our goal, it's not going to stick. There's nothing that's really driving us to do it. Then why would we continue to do it? So you need to find that. Having a plan, like I mentioned, I think that's really, really important to sit down and think of all the things that you need in order to make this goal stick. And a way to track your progress is always helpful. That really can drive motivation, is to see how you're improving. There isn't anyone out there that doesn't enjoy seeing improvement in themselves or what they're setting out to do for themselves, or lots of areas of your life. There could be this, of course, gratification from seeing improvement. So you want to understand how to set these realistic, smaller goals so that you're constantly being able to see small improvements throughout the year. That's what's going to keep you moving forward. And then having support. You need that on your side. You need accountability. It could be, obviously, it could be someone like a healthcare provider or someone that's educating you and teaching you, like one of us, like a dietitian like myself. But you need lots of different support. You need support from family members. You need support from friends, support from coworkers, support from just really at all angles here. So I think that's something that is really an important part of the process too, is sitting down and thinking of all the people that can support you throughout this journey, having people on your side. And the most important thing, I think, of all of that, finding that support, is someone reaching out and coming back and saying, you know what, I kind of want to do this too. So you motivate them, they motivate you, you're supporting each other in the process. All right, guys, so we're going to talk about SMART goals now. So you have an idea of maybe what some of your barriers are, why your resolutions are failing. You maybe have a better understanding of what are some things that we can do to help make them stick. And one of those things that we talked about was SMART goals. So let's break it down. What are these? Let's talk about it. So you can see the acronym there in the image there of what the SMART actually stands for. So what we're going to be talking about is how to make these goals specific, measurable, attainable, realistic or relevant, and time bound. How we're going to measure our progress too. Okay. All right. So when you think about making a goal specific, and we're going to just get into some examples so this all makes a little bit more sense, but I just want you to understand what's around each category first. So, okay, what makes it specific? So what do you want to achieve? This is the big picture here. So we need to think about some things. Who is going to maybe be involved? Where is it located? Which resources are involved? Some of these questions are going to go with certain goals that you're working on, and some of these questions aren't. But ultimately, it's all about understanding really what you need in order to make this goal happen for you. So measurable. How will you know when you have achieved it? So that's kind of an important thing to think about. So you might think about, how much, how many, how ultimately will you know when you have accomplished your goal? Because if we just have this, open-ended amount of time, an open-ended goal at hand, and we haven't really thought about that part. We don't have, these numbers, these steps, these miles, these, hours of sleep that we want to attain, for example, then we're kind of just out there in limbo. So you really want to know that part. Okay, now talking about how attainable it is. Is this something that you have control over? When we're setting our goals, that's a really important question. Some things we don't have as much control over as others. If we have physical limitations, there are just certain physical activity, movements, and things that we just can't do. So we shouldn't put pressure on ourselves to try to make those things happen if we know we just don't have as much control over that. If we have, um, anyway, I could think of other examples, but you get my point. So basically, you want to kind of think through, do I have control over this? And also think about, how can I achieve this goal and that realistic part? How realistic is it for me? We don't want to put pressure on ourselves. We only want to choose things that we're going to be able to actually accomplish. The R, realistic or relevant. Why is this applicable to your life? Are you doing this for you, or are you doing this for someone else? And sometimes we are motivated by other people to be a certain way. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But I want you to think about, does this goal seem worthwhile? Does this match my efforts, my needs that I need to put into it? Why do you want this for yourself? So I'm going to assume that a lot of people maybe don't take the time to do all this when you're setting a goal at the beginning of the year. So it's a lot of work at first. It seems that way, but I want you guys to just really indulge me here and try to sit down and think about all of these things, because this is the part. It can be a little hard at the beginning. It does take a little bit more time, but this is what's going to lead to some of that consistency and the checking off at the end of the year. Hey, I actually committed to this and I did this. All right, last, time-based. So when do you want to achieve this goal? So you might think about, what can I do to achieve this goal, again, in those small stages? So I usually tell people, hey, what can I do right now? What's the first thing that I could do? And then where do I want to see myself within this goal in, 2 to 3 months? You can break it down however you want to. Sometimes that's where we kind of come in handy, and we chat about this with people, because I get that, looks differently for everybody. It really just is an individualized thing. It depends on the type of goal you're choosing. And we're going to get into some examples so you can see what I'm talking about. So we're going to put it in action here, and then we're going to go over some more examples of some SMART goals. All right. So this could be a SMART goal for you all this new year. I know that this is something that I talk with people a whole lot about. So your goal could be to bring your lunch to work more. So again, my goal is to bring my lunch to work. So it's a really basic idea here, but we need to have lots of information to go around this goal to make that actually happen for you. So making it specific. So what are we going to have on hand? What are we going to do? What things do we need to make this achievable? So some of those action steps for that goal of bringing your lunch to work could be, I want to have, of course, lunch items on hand. We need to plan for that when we're doing our grocery, store trip. We need to make lunch the night before, so that we don't use that as an excuse as to why we can't bring it, as we forgot to make it. And excuse me, setting a reminder to bring lunch with you to work. So that's classic, isn't it? We make our lunch, we put it in the refrigerator, and then we walk out the door and we think, oh my goodness, why? We did so good, and then we forget it. So setting a reminder, post it, whatever works for you. If you have your phone on you a lot, that could be helpful. That's something that you could do for that S. So how are we going to measure it? So I will measure and track my goal by setting reminders to pack my lunch. Something else to elaborate here is, maybe every time you pack your lunch, you can make a little check mark somewhere on a calendar, however you kind of think. I tell people to use little calendars all of the time. I'm very much a pen and paper girl. But I get a lot of people like their electronics. So you could keep a note in your phone, and you could kind of do a little tally every time you remember to pack your lunch. And obviously having a range of how many days you're going to bring it, and then hitting that goal is what maybe you're trying to work on. Okay. So as far as attainable, what are you going to need to reach this, to make this happen? Resources could be a lunchbox, meal prep containers, some easy lunch ideas, and then just a little time devoted to working on this maybe over the weekend to do a little prep. This recipe that I'm making today, which is one of my all-time favorites, it's so good and it's so simple. We do it for dinners, but sometimes I just make it and put it into 4 or 5 containers. And that's what I'll eat, or my husband and I will share having for lunches during the week. So it's a really great meal prep, easy recipe. So hopefully you guys will try that out. Okay, why? So the relevance behind the goal. Why do we want to achieve this goal? Why do we want to eat lunch more at work, or bring lunch instead of maybe eating out? I want to reach this goal because I want to save money on eating out during the week and feel better when I've made lunches that I've made from home. So that's something that you can continue to elaborate on. There might be things that you're trying to reduce as far as what types of foods that you've been focused on that you want to maybe eat a little bit less of. Maybe it's less sodium, maybe it's less fried foods, and you know that if you make them from home, you're less tempted to have those on a regular basis. So okay, and then that T, so kind of figuring out a time frame. I plan to reach my goal over the next 4 to 6 weeks. So again, I think that depends on the individual. Some people kind of maybe are familiar with meal planning and prepping, but just have gotten out of the habit of it. So maybe they feel like they can kind of get on board with this in 2 to 4 weeks. And then there are some people that maybe they've been eating out for their lunch meal 5 days a week for a really long time. And this is going to be a slow build to that goal. All right, guys, so we're going to go over some more examples, not as in depth as what I just did, but just to kind of show you smart versus not smart. And again, give you some more ideas on when you're trying to form your own goals, how to do this. All right. All right. So these are going to be also some good, healthy examples of what some fun intentions can be for the new year. For the nutrition category here. So I've chosen the resolution to be to eat more fruits and veggies. This is such a big one for me personally, for people, and for myself, and for my family. So just because I'm a dietitian does not mean that I'm knocking it out of the park every day, guys. I have to think about it. And so sometimes there's weeks where I reevaluate how the week is gone. And I think, you know what? I don't really think I ate a lot of vegetables this week. So I'm going to really focus on that. So again, this is something that I really emphasize. Sorry, guys. Okay. So a smart goal around this category would be, I will eat a serving of fruit and or vegetable at lunch every day for the next 2 weeks to allow me to work on increasing my fruit and vegetable intake. So that would be an example of putting all that information that we just talked about, the lunch example, into play with this category. And then another example of how to say this goal, not as smart though, is just the simple blanket statement, I will eat more fruits and vegetables, which again, that's a great intention. However, when you kind of set out for that week, for that month, to eat more fruits and vegetables, I like a range. I like, that time frame. And again, just remember, ultimately, completing your goal is essential for maintaining that motivation. So you don't want to say here, an example of an unrealistic side to this goal also is, I am going to eat fruit, 2 servings of fruit and vegetables every single meal and snack every day for the next month. Yeah, that would be eating more fruits and vegetables, but I don't know that that's going to last very long, because as soon as you miss a snack or miss a meal, you're going to feel like you've not met that goal. Okay. So this is really just focusing on lunchtime. All right. One time of the day, and then you can continue to expand this goal. All All right. So an example for physical activity. So maybe your intention is to increase total steps. This is a personal one of mine. I enjoy going to the gym. I love going to the gym. I love a good exercise class. I'm a class girl. If you guys are, thinking about just increasing your activity, that's something that I want you to think of. How, what are things that I connect with? Um, Sorry guys, I think someone has their themselves not muted. So if you want to make sure you're muted, that'd be great. Thank you. So maybe what we're trying to do is, just increase total steps. And I think what I was going where I was going with that is I really think it's important to think about what's activity that you enjoy, and I think that's really great. So I love classes and that motivates me to get there. I love seeing a lot of people and having that kind of accountability of seeing everyone working, right around you. It feels really good. But ideally, just doing a 30 to 40-minute solid exercise, even daily, I mean, very good for your cardiovascular health. And we do want to be increasing, our strength training component to our workouts. But I think one of the most important things that we neglect is daily steps. Just moving, getting up, moving, getting in your steps throughout the day. And this can be done all day throughout the day. So we're not sitting as long. So an example of this SMART goal would be, I will aim for 5,000 steps. As far as what number you choose there, you guys, it really does depend on where you're starting from with your total steps. Maybe you have no clue and you just got an pedometer or smartwatch or something, and you're going to just track it to see where you're starting from, what a typical day is like. And then maybe we increase it by 1,000 or 2,000 steps from that, and then move up from there. But just to give you an example, I will aim for 5,000 steps per day by walking 20 to 30 minutes at least 4 to 5 days a week over the next 4 weeks in an effort to improve my cardiovascular health. There's a lot going on within this goal. So there's ranges, there's specific numbers. The biggest thing I like about this goal is that there's the 20 to 30, there's the 4 to 5. Those numbers can be adjusted based on where you're starting from as well. If you're someone who has not really been doing any exercise, I would start with 1 to 2. Maybe we need to start with 5 to 10. So again, the biggest thing that we want to remember about goal setting is we want to be able to complete this. All right. And then the not as smart example would just be that blanket statement. I want to get 5,000 steps daily. We need a little bit more information around that. All right. So maybe one of your New Year's resolutions is wanting to be focused around stress reduction. So this category is dealing with, building in some meditation for stress reduction. There's lots of different things that we talk about when it comes to reducing stress. A lot of times people don't realize that we talk about these things in our sessions, but we do. We ultimately, can only go so far with what we do talk about when it comes to stress management, but there's this, big connection between the way we eat and our desire to exercise when we're really high stress. So we love to set small goals around building in, little meditation practices, teaching people certain breathing exercises and things of that nature. So this SMART goal around meditation would be, I will plan to create 5 to 10 minutes of my time 3 to 4 times a week for mindfulness meditation practice over the next month to aid with stress reduction. Lots of wonderful apps and podcasts and things out there that can help with this if it's something that you've been thinking of. But there could be lots of other things, journaling, just kind of being out in nature. I mean, there's so many avenues that you could take to help with stress reduction. So again, the goal, the theme here you're seeing is just lots of information around this goal to help you know what you are to be doing, to help you stay consistent and ultimately make this, a habit and part of your life. All right. And then the not as smart goal would be I would like to reduce all stress in my life over the next 4 to 5 weeks. I just had to put that in there. I know that's really silly. We can't do that, right? That would be an extremely unrealistic goal. But, again, these goals, they do need to be meaningful and they do need to have lots of information. Okay. Last one is about sleep because I'm trying to go through the 4 different categories that we do try to talk about with patients for just general, wellness in their life. And sleep is such an important one. This is one I will circle back to. The control aspect. Is this attainable? Now, some parts of improving sleep habits are attainable for people, and then some things are out of our control when it comes to sleep. Like, for example, if you have a newborn baby, right? We don't have much control over when that sweet little baby is waking us up at night. So you need to think about the things that you do have control over when you have certain barriers like that in place. Um, all right, so a SMART goal around improving sleep habits would be I will work towards going to bed 1 hour earlier each night by going to bed 15 minutes earlier each week over the next 4 weeks. I love that. I love that it's in stages and it's weekly stages. And 15 minutes seems so much more achievable than telling yourself, I've got to go to bed, 3 hours earlier tonight. So that not as smart goal, again, kind of silly in my opinion, but I had to throw some of these in. I will go to bed by 11 p.m., stay asleep, and wake up feeling rested at 7 a.m. every night. So, y'all, I tell people this all the time when I talk to them and they tell me that they, just sleep like a baby and they just sleep like a rock. I'm like, that is a superpower because there are certain stages of life that we just enter into that we don't really have that luxury as much anymore. It's not as much in our control. So, again, think about what's in your control. Okay. So this is where I am going to challenge you all. This is your turn now. I want you, maybe not right this second, but maybe later today, maybe by the end of the week, if you want to set yourself a little small goal around when to set these goals. Um, Pick 1 to 2 categories that I just reviewed and form a SMART goal around them. Okay. Maybe you've already formed goals for yourself. You've thought about those categories and what you ultimately want to achieve, but you haven't put all the work into it. Maybe we're just kind of reviewing what we have already been working on since January, and we want to put more information around that goal. Review your goal with a friend or a family member, and even better, get your kids involved. Teaching young children how to set proper goals for themselves and watching them feel really motivated and really excited about how they accomplished those goals. That is what brings joy into these types of situations. So, most importantly, have fun. Okay. This is a inspirational saying that one of the dietitians that we work with introduced to us, and I absolutely loved it. So I want to see what happens if I don't give up. So pretty powerful when you think about just the power of consistency, the power of, you know, telling ourselves, hey, we actually can keep going. Maybe there are things that we need to revise in the way that we're thinking about these goals. And I hope that you've kind of gotten a little bit more insight into how to do that. How to set realistic goals may be just the ticket for you to maintain this consistency and actually see what happens if you don't give up. Okay. Thank you guys. All right, so this is the end of the presentation portion of the presentation today, and I'm going to move into the cooking demonstration side of things, which I'm really excited. We are going to be featuring a lovely chicken apple sausage sheet pan dinner. It is tasty, easy, and I just absolutely love it. So, all right. What I'm going to do is I'm going to explain the recipe and then I'm going to just put it all together. And then I've saved some time to answer some questions at the very end of the demonstration. All right. All right. So I'm going to talk through the recipe first. So this is from a blog that I've recently discovered, which I really enjoy. Her blog is called Easy Eats Dietitian, which you will discover when you click on the recipe link, and you can check out other things that she does, which I've made quite a few at this point, and I love all of it. Okay, so for the main ingredients here, we are gonna have some sweet potatoes, washed and diced. I am gonna go ahead and mention that, and I can send an update to the ingredient list here a little bit later so that this is distributed to you guys, along with some updated calorie information as a result of some of those changes. But I did not use two large sweet potatoes. I used about two kind of medium small. I didn't think that you guys have seen sweet potatoes right out there. They're huge. They can be huge, huge. So I just didn't think we needed two of these really large sweet potatoes. Okay, so there's that. And then you're going to use a 1 pound bag, which grocery store and seeing the Brussels, they come in like these little green mesh bags, just one of these little bags of Brussels halved. You can also quarter them depending on the size. So every size of Brussels in the bag are going to be a little different. So I just kind of made a game time decision. Is it big enough that I want to do it in quarters? If it's small enough, I'll half it. And then I did 4 of the chicken apple sausage links. No brand specification here. They're pretty similar across the board. So chopping those up, the beauty of this meal, you can swap out sweet potato for, red potatoes. You can swap out Brussels for broccoli. You can add a different flavor of chicken sausage. So it's really versatile. I do like this combination though. So I hope you try it this way if you're not opposed. Okay, so all of that prepped and ready, and I'll show you in a second. And then we're going to have 2 tablespoons of oil that I'm going to drizzle over the vegetables, along with a teaspoon of, let's see, garlic powder, onion powder, paprika. So it's a really nice blend. And then a little bit of pepper. I don't usually use salt. I don't think you need it at all in this recipe. The chicken sausage has the sodium. You don't need additional. Okay, so that's the base of the meal I'm going to put together. And then once that's on the sheet pan and popped in the oven, I'm going to make a glaze to go over the dish that you just kind of spoon a couple teaspoons of and then kind of mix it all together. It is so good. It adds a burst of flavor. It's awesome and very simple. It's 2 tablespoons of Dijon mustard, 2 tablespoons of honey, and 2 garlic cloves minced. And that's it. And you just kind of whisk it up and drizzle it over. All right, guys, I am going to adjust my screen here so that you can see me doing all of what I just mentioned. I'm going to start with the vegetables, okay? So I have a bunch of sweet potato here. This is about 2 medium sweet potatoes that I have chopped and diced into really tiny squares here. I have our pound of Brussels sprouts that I have gone ahead and halved or quartered. Some of them, like I said, are halved, some of them are quartered. And then I have 4 chicken sausages that I have cut into little slices. And then I have all of my spices that I've measured out and put into this bowl here. Okay, and I am going to measure out 2 tablespoons of oil. I'm actually going to dump Brussels in here. Pour our oil over top. And dump in our seasonings. And I'm going to mix it up. And then I'm going to take our chicken sausages and dump it in the pan. And I'm going to mix that. Okay. I have an extra large sheet pan here, you guys. You can split this recipe into 2 sheet pans if necessary. If you don't have a large one. Want to kind of evenly spread it out. You might have to use your hands if you want to. Just making sure it's not too crowded. All right. Some of these chicken sausages are hidden. Okay, I think that looks good. All right, so we have it completed. I have the oven preheated to 400, so I'm just going to put it in there for 25 minutes. Okay, bring over our glaze. Add some honey. And our garlic. Whisk it up. Right? So here is a completed version of the dish cooked. And then we're going to take 2 teaspoons of the glaze. Just a little bit more to get these over. All right, guys. Very, very simple, very, very delicious. I wanted to mention something really quickly, which I will also send over so that you guys have. So this is a 2-cup portion that I was just showing you. So again, absolutely delicious. Lots of flavor going on here, especially with just that little bit of glaze. There was 2 teaspoons of glaze that was added for 2 cups of the mixture together. So that was around 375 calories, 33 grams of carb, 20 grams of protein, and 15 grams of fat. I love the macronutrient distribution of this dish. If you needed to adjust the calories to go up, we could obviously talk through that. Sometimes it's just adding a salad with some avocado and a drizzle of some healthy olive oil dressing, and that'll fit the bill for increasing it a couple hundred calories there. And then some, but anyway, it's a really great macronutrient balance, tasty, easy weeknight meal. As you can see, the only thing that really you need to pay attention to is making sure that your veggies are prepped. It took me maybe 15 minutes to do all of that. So I saved some time for in the morning and I prep it. I put it in bowls. I put it in the refrigerator. When I come home, it's what you just saw. Literally dump, dump, dump. Add your seasonings, put it in the pan, and you whip up that sauce so fast and you have a very simple weeknight dinner. All right. I can use the remainder of the time to answer some questions if there is any.
Katie, I know you will address this when you send out the recipe, but
Yep.
the glaze, we had a question, was that just honey, mustard, and garlic for the glaze?
Yes. Sorry if you weren't able to hear me when I was talking through that. 2 tablespoons of honey, 2 tablespoons of Dijon mustard, and two garlic cloves minced and just whisked together. It is thicker. Um, a dressing would usually have olive oil mixed in and it kind of thins it out a little bit. But this is just those three ingredients. And 2 teaspoons would be I think a good serving of it. But if you want to add a little bit more, that would be fine too.
Okay, great. This was just so easy to do, and
Mhm. Yeah.
it gives you
Mhm.
enough that you really can use it very easily to meal prep, just to put
Yes.
in small containers and
Hmm.
use it for taking to work or whatever. And there's
Yes.
so many ways you can change up the chicken sausage to turkey sausage, or um,
Yeah.
sweet potatoes,
Yeah.
you
You can really kind of play
buttermilk
around with it
squash.
for sure.
Exactly. So anyway, and you had mentioned, someone is asking what could be a substitute for Brussels sprouts. You mentioned that broccoli or,
Yeah.
pretty much anything else.
I, I
Um,
think I think broccoli would be really good. You have sweet potatoes, so maybe not carrots if you wanted to. Cauliflower. Yeah, just like a red potato and broccoli. I mean, yeah, you can kind of alter it slightly there if you're not interested in the Brussels sprouts. I know sometimes
okay.
Brussels sprouts bother people's
So,
stomachs, and so that one's kind of a tougher one to digest. So I understand that. If it's a
and
taste thing, I want you to try it though, because these are so good. And this particular recipe, it just really gets the time, the temperature, and all that perfect. So,
yes, thank you. And
mhm.
relative to SMART goals, do you suggest or recommend one of the SMART goals from each of the categories that you talked through?
Well, I think that's individualized.
Yeah.
I think that it really just depends on what your goal is. If you're choosing a goal that needs to be broken down into many stages and is really elaborate, and it also depends on your personality too, in your history with things. So I want you to feel out, hey, in the past, if I really worked on things too much at one time, I know I said pick 1 to 2. So I wanted to give people that option to just focus in on 1 to 2 categories versus all of them so that you can kind of prioritize. And it doesn't mean that you can't add two. I tell people sometimes it's easier mentally to just kind of focus on one thing and really feel like you're driving that home, maybe working on that for a few weeks, and then you feel ready, to do another goal on top of that. But I mean, you can certainly have ideas of what this year you want for yourself. What are the top 4 things out of, one nutrition, one physical activity, one sleep, one emotional well-being, if you want to go at it that way. I wouldn't maybe suggest everyone working on 4 of those goals all at one time though.
Okay. And then sticking with the SMART goals, if do you what do you suggest to prevent, once you've achieved the SMART goal, that then not backsliding?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it's really about awareness, and one of the beauties of, I think we just tend to have such low confidence in ourselves. We get really worried about that. And that's fair. I feel like that we're all just humans in that way. I think I talk to people about, hey, what are some things you can start to notice and be aware of once we've gotten into a maintenance phase? Is it once you see yourself, and on a weekly basis, this is something that I ask people to do too, so that you're kind of always reflecting and you can kind of have those goals in your head. Hey, okay, these are the things that I've really worked hard on. So these are the things I'm going to continuously reflect on each week. But every week, I kind of have people have this reflection day where they think about, maybe it's a Sunday, it seems appropriate, or Saturday, Sunday, a weekend day, and you kind of think to yourself, hey, how'd it go today? or this week? How did it go this week? What are some things that I see myself kind of slipping on? So with that, you're really kind of constantly focusing on, okay, how is my week going? What's going on here? What are the things that I've worked hard on that make me feel my best? And how can I get back to that? So if you're working with a program, um, where you're working with a healthcare team, dietitian, and all that, and maybe you've gotten into a maintenance phase where you don't see them as frequently. Maybe you only see them every 3 months, every 6 months check in. Maybe that's a, hey, I think I need some more accountability around this. I'm seeing myself slip. Maybe I'll go start some, every other week visits again for, a month, couple months, and just see if I can kind of have some support, have some additional help with this. So those are kind of some things that I would have people pay attention to.
Okay, great. Um, and that is really about it. One person asked if the portion filling um is an amount that you won't be hungry.
I think this recipe, one of the beauties of it is it has, like I mentioned, 20 grams of protein, which is a really solid amount. It depends on the person and their activity level, where I might say, and 375 calories in the grand scheme of things is not a whole lot, in my opinion, for a main meal. So we might attempt to add some additional protein in some way, or have some additional fat into the mix. There's only 15 grams, which is a good amount, but we could add some healthy fats somewhere in the mix, like I said, with a salad, some avocado. So I think you have to, that's a very individualized evaluation. So it does depend on the person as far as if this portion size is going to fill you up or not. But the beauty of this, where I was kind of going with it at first, is it is loaded with fiber, has those Brussels, that sweet potato. These are whole foods. These are really feeding what you need. And a lot of times that chasing of hunger is us being a little malnourished and kind of nutrient deficient and not getting enough of what we need. So something to pay attention to is, how does a meal, and a portion size serve me well? Is there a certain area of improvement? And that's a really great thing, I will say, guys. It's hard to go into that. I would love to talk more about all the details of macronutrient balancing. It's really so important to understand that for your bodies. And that's something that a lot of people do in those individualized sessions.
Okay, good. Um, and one last question is, the recipe has 33 carbs. What's a good amount of carbs per meal for a pre-diabetic? I know that that person maybe would benefit from discussing
Yeah.
with a dietitian what exactly
Yes.
for
I
them, but
Definitely. I really encourage, considering the your state health plan benefits and just learning more about how food affects your bodies. And we have some fantastic tools, and you can get these elsewhere, but at your primary care. Samples of something called a continuous glucose monitor, which I really, really think people should take advantage of the 2 week samples of these, so that they can see how carbohydrates affect their body. Because the answer to that question is not, kind of cut and dry. It really depends. I don't know if 33 grams of carbohydrate is going to affect you individually. The thing that I do know about this recipe is that it's loaded with fiber, which is slower digesting carbohydrates. So these vegetables are digested a lot slower. So the fact that there's 33 grams of this versus 33 grams of, packaged foods that don't have protein, that don't have fiber, that's what's going to affect your blood sugar so dramatically different. But no, a 33-gram carbohydrate meal is very modest, in my opinion, to be honest, especially when you have macronutrients that are really right around that number. Um, so
good. Well, thank you so much, Katie. And thank you to all of you who have registered for today's event. We will be sending a recording link, the PowerPoint, and the recipe out by the end of the week, so be on the lookout for that. We also want to encourage you to register for our next event, which is scheduled for February 18th. So stay tuned. Thank
perfect.
you.
Thank you,
Thanks, Katie.
Carol. Yes, you guys stay warm. I'll see you in February.